And welcome to another edition of The End Zone. Trace Ford is our guest this week. I'm Colby Daniels. Trace started his 6-year college football career at Oklahoma State, finished with the Oklahoma Sooners. And Trace, last time we saw you, you were crushing it at the Oklahoma Pro Day. How have you been, man?
Been good. Not doing much, just working out and playing Fortnite. So
yeah.
It's been my day.
Having a nice time off from the grind of college football, I see.
Feels really good not having schoolwork anymore. So.
Well, let's talk some football. This is the End Zone, so let's jump into it. Your career, I mean, you've seen a lot of changes in the landscape of college football from when you started in 2019 through last season, and you've done a lot. I know at your pro day you talked about just your experience at OU and how I think the mental part caught up with the physical part, and you just felt like you learned so much under Brent Venables.
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much football IQ getting to OU, and like from my first year at OU to my second year, the jump was tremendous. You know, just knowing coverages and philosophy and why people are doing what they're doing and not just what I'm doing. It was amazing. It was really fun to learn.
Did that make you a bigger fan of the game, just in terms of like watching other guys or watching the game when you're not out there?
Yeah, so much. I mean, I always like kind of, you know, watch games with my like friends and watch NFL games, but I never really cared to like watch. And now I'm like analyzing the game when I'm watching it. I'm telling them what's going on, like what they're doing and why they're doing that. And it's so much more fun, easy.
What has been the experience in terms of just the process since the season ended, getting ready for pro day and working out and just thinking about, you know, what might come down the road?
Oh yeah, just got to be prepared in every aspect, and that's just what I've been trying to do. You know, just working out and laying low and just watching film and doing whatever I can. Cause this is a job interview, you know, and just trying to get in the door and make opportunities available. So just being prepared.
I know that sometimes having injuries might be something that teams worry about. I also think it's a test to, you know, your mental fortitude, if you will. Not everybody can experience 1 or 2 injuries and make it through and I guess have the drive to keep working through them and get to the other side and continue to put in the work. I know there are a lot of guys that have 1 injury and, you know, don't necessarily like stick to the game plan and that's it. So I think in terms of the mental side of things, that's a testament to you.
Easy, yeah. I mean, it was such a bummer, you know, getting
yeah.
hurt the second time. The first time I was like, whatever. And then the second time I was like, come on. But yeah, I mean, I grew as a person because of it, you know, just learning who you are outside of football. Do you really love the sport? That's a question that I asked myself a lot, because like you can't keep playing if you don't love the sport. It's hard. And the answer was yes, and I just kept pushing and I grew tremendously. So
I think sometimes we as football fans, and I'll put myself in this category at times, we get so caught up in the numbers and what the stats say about a player that you maybe lose sight of what the actual impact is. And I'll give you an example. As I was pulling up some highlights of you, trying to find some sacks, right, because those are the highlight plays, sure. Some sacks of you to run on our reel, there were so many plays where you don't get the sack, but you're making an impact, right? You're making the quarterback move out of the pocket, or you're opening the door for somebody else to maybe get the sack, and you don't get the stat for that specific play, but you're impacting the game despite what the numbers say, and that's something about defense especially that can't be quantified in a box score.
I told Coach Chavis this numerous times. I tell scouts this when I talk to them. I tell them, like you said, I didn't have a great productive season, right? But I feel like I'm always getting back there. I'm always close, and I'm always creating havoc. And like you said, I feel like I had a great season without having all those sacks, you know? So yeah, like you said, I feel like I get back there and I make things happen without making the play. So I have fun.
Well, let's talk about the Sooner team that's going into 2025. This is a defense that was insanely good this year, losing Ethan Downs, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, yourself, DJ Terry, a few other guys that I can't think of off the top of my head, but still a lot of talent coming back, and some people are worried about Brent Venables calling plays and trying to be the head coach. Is that an issue?
I don't think it's an issue at all. He did it my first year there, basically. I mean, he's done it before. He already basically does it today. Like, he's on the sidelines like, no, I don't like that play. Do this. Like, so I don't see why it's such a big problem. He's one of the best defensive coaches in college football, you know. So he knows better than anyone else on what's the best play to call and what to do. So I think it'll work out perfectly. I don't think it's a problem.
All right, I got to ask you about the offense before we take a timeout. Obviously, it was a disappointment last year. They changed the offensive coordinator. You bring in a quarterback from the West Coast and a lot of transfer portal players. I don't think you've spent a ton of time around the new personnel, but it seems like there's a lot of optimism about what the improvement might be.
Yeah, I go in there and work out at the stadium, every other day, and I see a lot of new faces, a lot of new guys, but the energy and the morale is really high. A lot of guys talk about John and the other new linemen that they got and how this is going to be a new year. And I've heard about that guy from Pine Bluff and how he's balling, and Deion's looking really healthy out there. So I'm really excited to see what the offense does this year. I think it's going to be a good improvement, and I think they're going to show Oklahoma fans why they should be excited.
And a huge pickup this week, getting Jaden Ott, the running back out of Cal, who's a big-time game breaker and now makes that one of the best running back rooms in the country. That's Trace Ford. I'm Colby Daniels. We'll take a quick timeout. We're going to talk about the evolution of spring games next here on The End Zone. All right, along with Trace Ford, I'm Colby Daniels. Trace joining us this week. I'm excited for moving the chains in the next segment because we've got some good questions to really test your ability to get a first down. It's spring football. Spring football wrapped up for the Sooners last weekend. Oklahoma State is wrapping up spring football this weekend. Mike Gundy kind of surprised, I guess, not only the media, but his own coaching staff this week in his media availability, where he declared that he decided he's making changes to their spring, I guess, what were they going to do? Spring practice.
This team needs to play a game, and we're going to play a game. We're going to split teams. We're going to split coaches, and we're going to play a real game. This team needs to play a game. I need to see them play a game, and I made that decision yesterday, and I haven't shared it with the staff. In fact, this is the first time I've mentioned it, but we're gonna officiate it. We're going to split the staffs up. We're going to call plays. We're going to play. In my mind, I'm thinking 15, 15, 15 with no halftime.
That's Mike Gundy. I guess you could call him an innovator because the current trend in college football is to do some sort of like practice, like skills challenge, go through drills. OSU was doing that like 10 years ago, and they were getting killed for doing that when everybody else was doing a spring game. Now everybody else is doing that, and Mike Gundy's trying to go through a spring game. When you were at OSU, did you guys ever play a spring game, or was it the like, I think they called it like Orange Crush or Orange Power?
Yeah, it was like a practice, but we'd have like a little scrimmage at the end, like a little like team period, going against each other. But it was never like an official.
Like a game, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy, the evolution of a spring game. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on, especially in this new landscape of college football where you have so much personnel turnover every year with the transfer portal. Does it make a spring game that much more necessary?
I think it sucks not having spring games. Like, listening to that with Gundy, it just made me so happy. Like, if I was a player, that just brings so much excitement to the locker room, It just makes it a lot more competitive, going against each other, and having fun and having a game and letting fans really get what they want to see. That's what they want to see. They want to see you guys playing against each other. And that just got me fired up. I think spring games are one of the best parts about the spring, and it's the best part about spring ball. You're looking forward to that game and the fans coming out and the atmosphere. So I really hope more teams can get back to the spring game ideology.
I saw some images. I wasn't able to make it last weekend for OU's Crimson Combine. I saw some images of the crowd, or the lack of a crowd, and I think former Coach Cale Gundy tweeted something like, from 50,000 to 5,000, what's happened to spring football? But it's that way everywhere, right? And I'm with you. I don't necessarily like show up to a spring game the way I do for a fall football game, but it's still better than what the alternative is. And as you said, from a player's perspective, it gives you something to work toward throughout the spring, and it's an extra motivating factor.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it's like a treat, It's like your, as a player, it's like your game, And people say, well, the walk-ons don't get to like show themselves and who they are on the spring day, And I agree with that, and it's the same for the starters, Like if you ask Danny Stutzman or me, like any of these guys, we're all going to say we'd rather have a spring game than a spring practice. I get why it's necessary, and why people are going away from it, but as a player and as a fan, I say bring spring football back. You know.
One of the big worries is that your players will be poached, right? You put on this performance, somebody has a standout performance, and here comes another coach and offers them a giant NIL contract. I was told that there were over 1,000 portal entries this week following spring football as the portal window opens again. And I think the one that everybody's focused on is Nico Iamaleava, if I'm saying that right, the Tennessee quarterback who apparently, and this is just based on reports, there's conflicting reports, asked for more money. Tennessee said no. They basically showed him the door. And he goes from a college football playoff team to, I think some people are predicting that he's going to end up at UCLA for less money than he was making in the first place. And that's just the landscape of college football now.
I think until there's like a rules on NIL, it's just going to get worse and worse. You know, I was talking to a guy who was saying that his son's going to Auburn next year, and he said, I'm going to tell him to transfer after his first year, you know, because every time you transfer, the odds of you getting more money is going to go up. And that's just how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think spring football or the games are particularly the issue, you know, like they're poaching regardless if you play in the game or not. If
Right.
they're watching good enough film, they know who you are. And so the game is the game. I think the transfer portal is just the wild, wild west, and everyone's trying to make a buck now. It's basically the NFL.
Are there players getting bad advice, though?
100%.
Like the
Yeah.
Nico situation,
Yes,
perhaps?
Yes,
Yeah.
you got people in your corner telling you, come here, come here. This team's offering you $500,000, and then you get in the portal, and that team wasn't offering him that. You know, it is what it is, and you just got to have the right friends and the right advisors around you.
All right, let's take a timeout. That's Trace Ford. I'm Colby Daniels. We're putting Trace in the hot seat. It's Moving the Chains next here on the End Zone. All right, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Moving the Chains. Trace Ford is our guest this week. We're going to switch it up this week, and we're going to do the Oklahoma drill. No, I'm kidding. I would like to survive the weekend and do this show next week, so I'm not going to put myself through that. But simple concept here, Trace. You start with 1st and 10. I'm going to throw a question your way. You answer it, and depending on how much I like or dislike your answer, I will give you positive or negative yardage, and you have to attempt to move the chains. So I mentioned the Oklahoma drill. That's where we're going to start. Give me your dream former OU and former OSU teammate matchup for an Oklahoma drill. If you were going to get to go against any former OU teammate in the Oklahoma drill and any former OSU teammate, who would it be?
Like a running back, like an offensive player?
Anybody you want.
I'm going against Malcolm Rodriguez.
Okay.
And then I'm going against probably Isaiah Coe.
Okay.
Those are the two dudes I want to go
Why
against.
Malcolm?
I want to test the solitude, you know. He thinks he's a big guy, and I think I'm bigger. So
Well, you are bigger, but he might be able to get a little bit lower
I
than
want to
you.
show guys I can wrestle and I can take him down. That's the
Okay,
goal.
I love it. Why Isaiah Coe?
Same thing. He talks
Okay.
a lot of mess in the locker room, and I want to show him what's up.
You want to settle it in the Oklahoma drill? I love it. I thought you might pick a quarterback just because you never actually get to hit those guys in practice, right? But
I've hit Spencer Sanders a couple times in practice.
Okay.
I shouldn't have.
well, there you go. He has hit the quarterbacks in practice. I love the answer, and I love the fact that you want to settle any trash talk in the Oklahoma drill. I'm going to give you 9 yards on first down.
let's
So
go.
we're setting up a 2nd and 1. All right. I don't know if you like to sing karaoke or if you don't or if you're good at singing or not. But if you had to sing a karaoke song, what would be your go-to karaoke song?
I might lose some yards for this, but Thunderstruck easily. It's just an
Okay.
easy song, and I can get into it. So.
Who doesn't get pumped up for Thunderstruck?
Exactly.
I'm in. Listen, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so when the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders take the field before a home game
Yeah.
to Thunderstruck, I get amped up. So I love the answer. I'm going to go ahead and give you a first down, and we'll try to pick up 2. So gain of 2, 1st and 10 again as we get to the third question in this edition of Moving the Chains. All right, hypothetical situation. You are playing the starring role in a romantic comedy movie. Who is your celebrity co-star?
It's a woman,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you.
Probably Jennifer Aniston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston. Are you going like Friends Jennifer Aniston or like?
Yeah, Friends Jennifer Aniston.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Rachel. What was her
Rachel
last name in the
Green,
show?
yeah.
Rachel Green in the
Well,
show.
Rachel Green.
Extra points for knowing the last name on that one. So let's go gain of 8. You've done nothing but pick up big yardage already. So
yards.
2nd and 2 on the final question. You got to OU, what, 2-3 years ago?
2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago. What's your best Brent Venables story?
All right, okay. So one day after practice, his 2-hour talks after practice, we're all on our knees, and he calls me out. He says, Trace, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be great at? What do you want to do in life? And I said, try to satisfy him. I want to go to the NFL, coach. Wrong. He's wrong. What do you like? Gets on to me. Everyone's like, oh crap. And everyone gets scared, and he's telling me like, you need something more bigger than football. Like, what do you want? And I was like, I want to get rich, and that was the first thing that came to my mind. And everyone's laughing, and I think he thought I was just messing around, and I think I was on like his bad list for like 3 weeks after that. He just wasn't happy, fed up, just kind of going on for like 20 minutes about how that's a wrong answer. And, I was terrified, I'm shaking like, oh,
I
no.
imagine.
That's right.
What was the answer he wanted? Did he ever say like what he wanted you to be like?
Great husband, great father,
Okay.
the good things. And I should have said that, but in the moment I wanted to be rich. I wanted to make
Fair
the
enough.
NFL, so.
Fair enough. I'm also really excited to hear that he talks for 2 hours to you guys as well, because sometimes in the press conferences, you look at the clock, you're like, he's been talking for 45 minutes, and I think somebody's asked one question at this point. So you guys get it as well as the media, and that's an awesome story. Let's go touchdown here.
Hey.
Touchdown for Trace Ford on this edition of Moving the Chains. I'll give you a bonus one real quick. Why is Edmond Memorial better than Edmond Santa Fe?
They're not. Their football field is tiny and right up against the street.
And he fumbled! It's a turnover! No, I'm kidding. All right, we're going to take a timeout, and we're going to wrap up the show. The Thunder playoff schedule's out. That's next here on The End Zone. All right, welcome back one final time as we wrap up the show. Trace Ford is our guest this week. I'm Colby Daniels. It is NBA playoff season. Finally, the NBA regular season lasts for what feels like an eternity. 82 games. I will say this team, I've been covering the Thunder since about 2009. This team was probably more fun to cover over the course of 82 games than any other Thunder team, and maybe that's because they just genuinely like each other and they play with a certain joy that maybe some previous Thunder teams didn't play with, and as a viewer, I think that probably makes watching them play 82 times not feel like it's quite the marathon, but you're a Thunder fan. You excited for what this playoff run's going to look like?
Oh, I'm so pumped. This is the year. This is the year for the Thunder, so I'm excited.
I've been saying for, I think, 2 or 3 months, they're going to win a championship if injuries don't become a factor, right? In this postseason, if they get to play everybody in the NBA full strength, no one is beating them 4 times in a 7-game series. I just don't see how it's happening.
I agree. I'm kind of afraid of the Lakers, but I agree with that statement. I don't see any team beating them 4 times in a row.
I think that with the Lakers, and I might throw like Denver in this category, Minnesota to me is probably the toughest matchup, but the great thing about the draw so far is Minnesota and Lakers play each other in the first round, so you're not going to have to go through both of them. You have the Warriors playing the Rockets in the first round, and then the winner of that plays the winner of Minnesota and LA. So there's some really, I think from a matchup standpoint, you're going to avoid maybe the toughest matchups that you could face. Over the course of 7 games, though, I just don't see how the Lakers in games 4, 5, 6, 7 are able to maybe match what they're able to do early in a series. So I do think the Thunder have that on their side. We got the playoff schedule release as we get ready for Dallas-Memphis to take place. The winner of that game will play Oklahoma City in the first round. The Thunder are going to host the winner of Dallas-Memphis on Sunday and Tuesday, and then games 3 and 4 will be in either Dallas or Memphis next Thursday and Saturday. And then if necessary, if the Thunder don't sweep this thing, Monday, April 28th, Thursday, May 1st, and Saturday, May 3rd will be games 5, 6, and 7. Games 5 and 7 would be at the Paycom Center. Do the Grizzlies or Mavs have anything for the Thunder in the first round?
Not a chance. Maybe if the Mavericks had Kyrie Irving, but they don't, and I think it'll be an easy first round matchup.
It would be some sweet justice to take out the Mavericks after they made the worst trade in NBA history and also sent you home last season. What to you is the ideal NBA Finals matchup if they do make it that far?
I say the Thunder versus the Celtics. That's the most common sense answer, and that's also would be a great and very fun matchup to see.
Very nice. Before we let you go, back to football for a moment. Are you hoping that any one specific team calls?
The Miami Dolphins. That's my favorite team growing up.
Okay.
Just been a big fan. My dad named me after a Miami Dolphins player when I was young, so
Very nice.
big fan.
And it wouldn't suck to live in Miami.
Not
So
at
there you
all.
go.
Not at
That's Trace Ford. Trace, we appreciate it. I'm Colby Daniels. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll do it again next week.